Robert Shackney in New York, Richard O'Brien in Chicago, and David Cohane in Greenwich Village, New York.
Good evening. President-elect Richard Nixon and the man he defeated met today for private talks and an appeal for national unity. Hubert Humphrey, flying toward a vacation in the Virgin Islands, stopped off at Nixon's suggestion for the meeting with the president-elect at Opelika Airport near Miami. Humphrey was accompanied by his running mate, Senator Edmund Muskie. Afterward, each of the men made statements. First, Nixon.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just had the opportunity to have a visit with Vice President Humphrey and Senator Muskie. I'm delighted that their plane came through Florida because I was going to call on the Vice President, and this made it easy to do it right here. I recall in 1960, after losing a very close election, that President-elect Kennedy called on me when I was here in Florida, and now history repeats itself. So I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We had a very good discussion about the campaign, naturally, some reminiscing. Also, with regard to some of the problems of the future, particularly in the foreign policy field. And I was very heartened to receive from the Vice President his words to the effect that we should work together in those matters where the national interest must prevail over partisan interest. And I know that Senator Muskie has also expressed similar views. I would just summarize my own conviction at this point by saying that this is a time when we must unite this country. We're going to still have our partisan differences, but the place to start uniting the country is for the two men who led their parties in a very, very hard fight for the presidency. And in a very, very close result, the two men have met here and are still speaking to each other. We're still good personal friends. And I look forward, I want to make this clear, in the next 4 years, to, of course, work with Senator Muskie in the Senate, and in the next 4 years to call upon Vice President Humphrey for his advice and for his counsel and his assistance, particularly in matters of foreign policy. He's indicated he would be willing to help me in that respect. Mr. Vice President?
Thank you very much, Mr. President-elect, Mr. Nixon. This visit is nothing new for us. During my vice presidency, Mr. Nixon has been kind enough on several occasions to share some thoughts with me and to share some of his experiences with me. We've completed a hard-fought campaign. Both of us are well aware of the trials and tribulations of partisan life and partisan politics, but we're equally well aware of the necessity for leaders of the parties to pull together on the items and the matters of great national concern. And I'm very happy to have this visit with our president-elect. He's going to be our president, and I'm going to be one of his fellow citizens, and I'm going to want his presidency to be an effective presidency, because as he succeeds, we all succeed. I feel that the two of us here today are setting an example for some other people in the country, which I hope they'll follow, namely that men of goodwill can reason together and can pull together. We need to have our country stand together as never before, and we need the cooperation of people of all walks of life, of all races, of all groups and creeds in this country. And I have assured the President-elect that in matters that relate to our national security and our foreign policy, that I shall be as helpful as I can be within the limits of my experience and knowledge, and that when and if that times require, if I can be of any help along the way for the country, and that is also for our President, that he can call on me. We haven't abandoned our respective political parties, and we will not do so. As a matter of fact, a healthy two-party system is required. But we can keep it healthy and wholesome. It doesn't need to be vicious, nor does it need to be conspiratorial. And I can assure you that it will not be. We'll try to be worthy of the high offices that both of us have held, and I'll try to be worthy of the respect of the President-elect.
Senator, would you like to?
Well, I think the basic theme of this meeting has been well struck. And in Maine, we have a saying, Mr. President-elect, that we don't say anything that doesn't improve on silence.
Well, thank you very much. We wish you the very best. And thank you. Down on the Virgin Islands, and we hope you get lots of fresh.
I'll have it a little easier for a couple of weeks.
Yes, now you can take a vacation, and I have to go to work.
Go to work.
That's one benefit of being on the other side.
Yes, sir.
Good man. My best wishes to you.
Yes, sir.
Someday I'll take a vacation in Maine.
All right. Thank you.
Teddy Bob.
You bet. Take care.
It is known that Nixon and his advisers have discussed the possibility of offering Humphrey a post in the new administration, a peace ambassadorship perhaps in Paris or at the UN. And such an offer may have been made when the two men met this afternoon. The meeting with Humphrey so soon after the election is reminiscent of Nixon's unity drive within the Republican Party immediately after his nomination. Now, a winner with no clear mandate to govern, Nixon intends to pursue bipartisan unity as well. Bill Plant, CBS News, Opelika Airport, Miami.
Vice President-elect Spiro Agnew was to arrive in Florida later today for a conference with Nixon tomorrow. Before flying to Florida, Humphrey and Muskie had a breakfast meeting with President Johnson at the White House. A spokesman said they talked about the campaign and the future of the Democratic Party. And the first of the routine cabinet resignations accompanying a change of administration came today from Treasury Secretary Henry Fowler. He plans to leave office about December 20th. Undersecretary of State Nicholas Katzenbach also resigned today, effective near the end of Johnson's term. He'll become general counsel for IBM.
Look, you're always tired.
I wish I knew why.
It could be iron-poor, tired blood. You may need Geritol. The great majority of tired people don't feel that way because of iron-poor blood, and Geritol won't body. For iron-poor, tired blood, take Geritol and feel stronger fast.
Go ahead, splash it on and get the Frostline lift. The Aqua Velva Frostline lift. What a lift with Frostline. Frostline is the refreshing new aftershave with livelier lines for that Frostline lift.
There's something about an Aqua Velva man.
Get that Aqua Velva Frostline lift.
Richard Nixon held a lead of about 0.5% over Hubert Humphrey as the tally of the popular vote continued today. With the returns 98% complete now, Nixon's margin amounted to some 337,000 votes. Oregon's Wayne Morse has lost his Senate seat. This became apparent today as the count of absentee ballots neared completion. With only some 2,800 ballots uncounted, Morse trailed Republican Robert Packwood by more than 3,400 votes. Thus, the 36-year-old Packwood becomes the Senate's youngest member. Terry Drinkwater reports.
Wayne Morse has been the maverick of the United States Senate for nearly a quarter century, but no more. Enough of the late returns have been counted now, so it is clear that Morse has been defeated. The man who beat him was an organization Republican, Robert Packwood.
Gentlemen, I'm here today, and this is a victory statement because I'm convinced now that with the returns that we've seen and the few scattered absentee ballots that are left to go, barring some horrendous mechanical miscalculation, I think that we can count this as a victory for me.
Do you expect him to ask for a recount?
I don't know. The vote's close. A recount is expensive, but not that expensive. I think if I were in the position of having run as hard as he did and spent as much money as he did, that I would be inclined to go ahead. But a recount seldom changes much. Senator Morse picks up a vote or two in a precinct, and I pick up a vote or two, and if it were to change the outcome more than 100 or 200 votes, I'd be surprised.
Morse's aides say the senator is considering a recount. Under Oregon law, he has until early December to decide. But veteran political observers feel it's all over, and that this man, Robert Packwood, is the winner, even though Morse has not yet conceded.
There's really not too much left here in Wayne Morse's headquarters, a few empty boxes, but the man himself left much of substance behind. By most measures, he was the first of the United States senators to become critical of the war in Vietnam. He was a maverick. A long time ago, in 1952,
He quit the Republican Party, became an independent, and then a Democrat. To him, people and issues were important, not party politics or personalities. In many ways, he was the first politician of the new politics, long before the phrase new politics was known by very many people. Now in retirement, Wayne Morse will go back to his farm in Eugene, Oregon, and raise cattle. And that's something he enjoys doing almost as much as being United States Senator from Oregon. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Portland.
Senator Birch Bayh, a longtime advocate of presidential election reform, today renewed his campaign to abolish the Electoral College and announced plans for a new round of congressional hearings. The Indiana Democrat described the closeness by which Tuesday's election escaped going to the House as a, quote, near brush with catastrophe. George Wallace's third-party organization in Michigan announced plans today to offer a candidate for governor there in 1970. Harold Snyder, the state chairman, also said that the party probably will present candidates for several other offices on the ballot then.
How many pain relievers do you know of that give you a second dose of pain reliever during the night while you sleep? Measurin does, the first pain reliever with a built-in second dose. Measurin contains a double dose of aspirin in timed release form, so you take it once every 8 hours instead of every 4. Gives maximum nighttime pain relief. Helps you wake without stiffness. That's timed release Measurin, the convenient pain reliever with a built-in second dose for a long-lasting pain relief.
When you have acid indigestion, every second counts. So count on instant-acting Phillips tablets. Phillips tablets go to work in seconds. With one of the fastest stomach settlers ever discovered, each small Phillips tablet neutralizes more excess stomach acid than the leading antacid tablet that comes in a roll. So for fast relief from acid-upset stomach, when every second counts, count on instant-acting Phillips tablets.
South Vietnam's President Thieu suggested today that Saigon replace the United States as leader of the Allied delegation at the Paris talks. And he said the other side, North Vietnam, could include in its delegation the Viet Cong, or as Thieu described them, Hanoi's auxiliary forces. U.S. officials declined immediate comment other than saying they are studying the proposal. But Senate Democratic leader Mike Mansfield said it would amount to the tail wagging the dog. In Paris, North Vietnam's Xuan Thuy did not reject the idea of Saigon heading up the Allied side, but he insisted again on separate Hanoi and Viet Cong delegations. As he put it, if the United States and Saigon want to be one, it's their problem. But in that case, there would then be 3 independent delegations. Our CBS News Bureau in Saigon said the feeling among many observers is that Thieu's proposal was in part a propaganda move designed to counter the adverse reaction to his boycott of the Paris meetings. They also said Thieu may be playing for time in hopes that Nixon will take a harder line against the communists. In the war, American B-52 bombers attacked enemy staging areas today in Tay Ninh province near the Cambodian border. The planes dropped more than 1,500 tons of bombs, setting off a series of large explosions. South Vietnamese officials claim the communists have massed 60,000 troops in that area for another possible offensive. Reports from Sweden today said that 5 Russian soldiers have defected from their units in protest against the Czechoslovak invasion and now are in Stockholm. Swedish authorities refused to confirm the reports, which said the soldiers were among the Soviet troops occupying Czechoslovakia. More than 100 American GIs who deserted their units because of the Vietnam War have sought asylum in Sweden.
If we had made the longer Benson and Hedges 100s a long time ago, we might never have known the British were coming. The discovery of electricity might have been 50 years later. For the love of 5 extra puffs, the Delaware might never have been crossed. Can you imagine what would have happened if Adam had smoked?
At Persona, we got a simple directive from our chairman of the board.
Our blades have to shave better than any other blades. Better!
So, we developed Electro-coated persona blades. Injector in double edge.
Better!
Better, yes.
In Baltimore today, 9 Catholic war protesters, among them priests and former priests, were sentenced to federal prison for burning draft card records. The prison terms range from 2 to 3.5 years. The 9 plan to appeal. Much of the active opposition to the Vietnam War in the United States has come from an organization of young radicals, the Students for a Democratic Society. But the war is only one of their targets, and their violent protests have ranged from campus rebellions across the nation to the disorders of the Democratic Convention. For a series of special reports, Robert Shackney took a look at the organization. Tonight, the first part.
We have only begun to continue to fight. Join us! Join us!
Columbia University in September as the autumn semester began. Once again, the sound and the sight of campus radicals in revolt. And once again, the organizers, Students for a Democratic Society, better known by their initials, SDS, the group that sparked last spring's student uprising, now calling for more of the same here and elsewhere this fall. What this means depends on who and where the observer is. To J. Edgar Hoover, SDS poses a major threat of revolutionary terrorism, a view reflected by Representative Richard Eichord of the House Committee on Un-American Activities.
I definitely would classify SDS as a subversive organization and as a dangerous organization. And the danger it does present to the nation as a whole, I think, will depend upon how the university administrators throughout the country react. That is, if they don't get more backbone and enforce discipline in our colleges and universities, they will constitute a very serious threat.
The reaction is very different on the university campus. Columbia graduate student Gene Jordan, a non-member of SDS.
No. Anybody who thinks that SDS is capable of a conspiracy has never been to an SDS meeting.
What do you mean?
Well, anyone who's been to one of our meetings knows what I mean.
The purpose of this meeting, as I understood it, was to talk about what SDS, Harvard SDS specifically, should do this year.
A meeting of SDS students and sympathizers at Harvard University. A discussion of tactics, a discussion that goes on and on and on. Everybody says his own thing and at great length. Everything supposedly is decided by the group, not by a handful of leaders. This is what students call participatory democracy. It's not always a good way to get things done, to get policies established, or to run an efficient revolution.
I think that thing with Dow Chemical last year was just shocking. I mean, I thought it was just totalitarianism. I mean, you just don't go lock people in rooms. Why can't they lock you in a room then? I mean, it's just, if we're going to use tactics like that, you know, they can use them far better than we can.
This is a totally ridiculous position to take, that saying it's not justified to lock a Dow reporter in a room and that this is violence used against him or denial of his free speech, when you see, you know, what's Dow doing to the people of Vietnam? They're doing something a little bit worse than locking them in a room and denying them free speech. And I think that just totally undercuts this sort of attitude towards this.
At this meeting, discussion of tactics, discussion of issues, discussion of whether to seek confrontations on or off campus, discussions even of what to discuss, and at the end, no decisions reached on anything. This lack of decision is hardly unusual at SDS gatherings anywhere. It even happened at the last SDS National Convention. In fact, it's hard to determine who, if anybody, makes decisions for SDS. There is a national headquarters on a rundown Chicago street. There are national officers, 11 in all. There are national publications. But clear direction and purpose, a statement of ideology, the kind that old-line communist groups used to have, is lacking. National Secretary Mike Klonsky.
You know, despite what what all those senators and investigating committees want to say, we don't know. We don't plan, you know, pick out 50 campuses and say this will be our targets for the year. It's generally where the contradictions grow most obvious.
If SDS has no well-defined ideology, some of its short-term goals seem clear enough. The end of American involvement in Vietnam is one. An end to university research for the Defense Department and defense-related industry is another. Capitalism is seen by SDS as evil, as a system that must go, and racism in all its forms is to be combated. It's estimated there are between 30 and 40,000 members of SDS nationwide. This fall, they can be found in strength on several hundred campuses, usually the better private and state universities, and including some colleges with heretofore impeccably conservative reputations.
Letters said we should find a way to withdraw while not forfeiting any of the work that IDA does.
Recruiting new members is a major, possibly the major, SDS activity this fall. A program, as its leaders put it, to radicalize American students. The program is not confined just to colleges either. There are SDS activities in high schools as well. For example, in the Los Angeles area, an organizing campaign is underway in 12 high schools. Where all this will lead is a matter of some uncertainty and some argument. Sociology professor Richard Flax, a founder of SDS in the early 60s, thinks that student dissatisfaction and disillusion with the American system will grow. He talked with reporter Richard O'Brien.
All they, I think, are sure of now is that their job, regardless of what anyone else may think, it's their job to disrupt the ongoing system, to prevent it from working smoothly. Because if it works smoothly, black people in the country are going to be oppressed. People around the world are going to suffer from American military intervention. So their job is to prevent that from happening.
Violently or otherwise.
Whatever means are necessary, as Malcolm X used to say.
In 1962, SDS was founded as a non-communist, moderate, liberal student organization. But the years have made it far more radical. What some of its leaders and some of its members are thinking, what they want now, and the people they influence, in our next report. Robert Shackney, CBS News, New York.
Two Italians staged a bizarre protest against the Greek military government today. They hijacked an Athens-bound jetliner after it took off from Paris and forced it to return to the airport. The plane, with its 130 passengers, landed safely, and the two men were arrested. Police say they carried 2 unloaded pistols and an unarmed grenade. The plane belonged to Olympic Airways, which is owned by Aristotle Onassis. Scotland Yard today arrested Bruce Reynolds, the suspected mastermind in the $7 million holdup of a British mail train 5 years ago. The arrest was made at a British seacoast resort by one of England's most famous detectives, Tommy Butler, also credited with spotting James Earl Ray 5 months ago at London Airport. Butler delayed retiring to concentrate on the train robbery, and it helped send 14 men to jail in the case, although 2 later escaped. One suspect remains at large. Most of the money has not been recovered. 2 unmanned U.S. satellites were launched by a single rocket at Cape Kennedy today. One was Pioneer 9, a space and solar research satellite intended to join 3 others already in orbit around the sun. The other was a 40-pound communications satellite, which went into orbit around the Earth. It will be used to train ground stations for the manned Apollo 8 mission scheduled for next month. Prices were sharply higher on the New York Stock Exchange today, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average posting its biggest gain in 3 weeks. Volume was 14.25 million shares, and the exchange index was up 25 cents.
I have a policy with your company, and I've just had an accident. Well, according to the map, I'd say about 3 miles south of Springfield.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
You see, it was raining pretty hard, and I was just crawling along because we were looking for this turn about a mile past the toll booth. I never even saw the other car. It seemed like he came out of nowhere. Nobody was hurt, but the right side of the car is pretty well smashed in. Yes, thanks. If you do that, it'll be a big help.
Yes, I understand. Oh, that's just...
No matter where you are, day or night, if you have an automobile accident and you're covered by Continental Insurance, you can call our new Dial-A-Claim service, Collect. We'll make sure you get all the claim service you need starting the moment you put down the phone. But we hope you never have to call.
With the returns not yet all in from Campaign 68, there are signs that Campaign 72 already has begun. That story from David Culhane in New York.
What's this? More political buttons? We just get over one election and somebody's got the nerve to launch the next campaign. In case you haven't figured it out, the EMK on the button is Senator Edward M. Kennedy. Even before the 1968 election was decided, these two girls launched the 1972 Kennedy campaign from their apartment in Greenwich Village. Judy Mills and Marianne Rice, who both work for publishing companies in New York, think the nation didn't have a real choice in 1968, and they want to make sure things are different in 4 years. They've already sent out 2,000 buttons, and the response is brisk.
Who's paying the bills for this campaign?
Well, Marianne and I are paying them out of our own pocket.
How much do you think you've spent at this point?
I would say probably $500.
Don't you think that people are a little bit fed up with politics at this point, that they've had just about enough for a while?
They may be temporarily exhausted, but I think at least the people we've been hearing from, that disheartened is a better word, and we hope that maybe this will help, and it seems to be from the mail that we've been receiving. I think people are looking ahead, and looking ahead to 72, and looking ahead with an eye towards Senator Kennedy.
In other words, you don't think that they need a little break between campaigns?
Well, we're not going to give them a little break between campaigns.
There's one question that really fascinates me, is whether you have consulted with Senator Kennedy about this campaign.
We haven't been in touch with Senator Kennedy. We were afraid he'd do to us what he did to his supporters at the convention, ask us to cease all efforts in his behalf.
Well, suppose he does ask you to cease and desist. What are you going to do?
I don't know.
How would you feel if the senator says cease and desist?
I don't know. I think I'd probably cry at this point.
The Nixon-Kennedy campaign may sound like political history to most of you, vintage 1960. But if these girls have their way, it's going to be the next presidential race. Nixon versus Kennedy in 1972. David Culhane, CBS News, New York.
And that's the way it is. Friday, November 8th, 1968. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.